Well, hello. So I'm on 2 minutes early, if anyone is catching this a little later. And I'm just going to hang for these 2 minutes and get ready to be live with all of you. Hi, welcome. And that's a great way to start. Thank you so much, Philip, for all of your support. Philip Weber is acting as moderator for me today in the chat, and he's been helping me sound test and get prepped and ready to launch this live series. Philip has a new company, Skydancer Media, whose website is currently under construction, but they're doing some really exciting stuff. And I know that I've appreciated the support. So yeah. So this is my introduction to this new series, Actualizing Your Authentic Self, which I've taught as a workshop and a class before, and I just got really excited to do as a live series. So I'll be here every other Tuesday, today by myself and some other times probably by myself, but often with guests who will be participating with me in this discussion of supporting you in actualizing your authentic self, what that is, what that looks like, and what it means, right? So today I intend to share with you what that means to me. And to anyone who is new to me, I'm Vita. Hi. I've been studying mind, body, and spirit since I was little. First by way of stories, teaching stories from different traditions, going to yoga classes. And then as I began to read books, reading Freud and Engels and Marx and theories from indigenous traditions, and Aesop's Fables was one of my favorite places to revisit. And just diving in to the truth of self. As a professional, these last 22 years, I've had the opportunity to provide massage, mindfulness, Reiki sessions, classes, and workshops. And all of it adds up to how do we show up as ourselves and be comfortable, be joyful, live lives of joy, live lives that are true for us. Because for each of us, that is a little different. And all of it is so valuable. The more that each of us is able to show up as ourselves, the more of a complete whole we create together. So I'd like to start with a story. This is a teaching story that continues to be meaningful to me. There are two monks walking down a path, and they have sworn themselves to be separate from women, to not touch, not engage with. Just one of the vows that they took when they entered into their monastery. And as they're walking the path, they see a frail woman trying to cross a stream. And one monk just nods at her and is polite, but just goes past. And the second monk looks at her, offers to help her, and ends up carrying her across. And when he reaches the other side, he puts her down and continues walking with his fellow monk. Now, the monk who left the woman behind is very upset and is blustering. And he's been studying with the monk who carried the woman. So this is his teacher. So the student says to his teacher, how can you have forsworn your vows? How can you have broken these things that are so part of you, such an integral part, right? And the teacher says, well, I put her down at the stream and you're still carrying her. I think I've told that story better at other times, which is an opportunity, right, for me to be kind to myself in this moment now and to not carry it. Just like the teacher did not carry that woman any further than she needed support for. And really, the student carried her for longer. These are examples of things that can get in our way of showing up as ourselves, as being authentic. When we carry worry, concerns, attachments about how we believe we're supposed to be, what we believe is right and true, how we believe the world expects us to show up, what we believe about our commitments in showing up. All of those things, we have the option to internalize them and to carry them and to then act in ways that are not really true for us. This happens a lot, like as we're growing, as children, as young adults, as people experiencing life at all ages. We have opportunities where we're looking to other people to guide us, to give us information, to teach us. And as children, that's with everything, right? We don't understand the world. And so we're constantly looking for guidance until we decide that we do understand something, and then we're trying at it in every way that we can. So how do we internalize those things? How have you internalized things that people have said to you or about you? Expectations that have been placed on you? Paths that have been made for you? And how do you speak to yourself? These are all things that I love to consider and explore, because I know that every time that I dive into these aspects of myself and check in with my holistic system, mind, body, and spirit, to uncover what's really mine and what's true for me, then I'm able to show up with more freedom, to be more comfortable, to be more myself, to allow myself to change and shift. One of the books that I've read a lot as a student, as a teacher, is The Four Agreements. And it just continues to be so important to me. It's popping into my mind right now, right? Because of the things that we've internalized are agreements that we made. Somebody offered us a belief, a definition, an idea, and we agree with it and internalize it, and it becomes part of our subconscious behavior. So how do we know if we're being ourselves? I was thinking about this a lot today, kind of as I was compiling my notes and considering what I wanted to talk about tonight, what I wanted to share tonight. And one of the questions that came up in me is, how much are you able to be? To simply be. And to be really present. Just where you are. Right? When we are distracted from our present moment by pain, by discomfort, by worries or fears, even love, right? When things are taking us out of the moment that we're in, then we are interacting with those internalized things, those aspects of ourselves that bring us out of what is really authentic for us, right? Because we've integrated those aspects. So they're still in us. They're still being carried by parts of us, which means that they need more nurture. And it comes back to relationship. How are you relating to yourself? What is your relationship with yourself like? I think we think a lot about our external relationships and we tend to them. We show up in the ways that we've agreed to, right? When we're interacting with another person, that person gives us feedback about what they like, what they don't like, what they prefer, what they don't prefer. Being authentically you, showing up as yourself, is the opportunity to foster and nurture that relationship with yourself. How often do you check in with what you prefer, with how you prefer for yourself to be treated? So I'm going to invite you to, right now, whatever position feels comfortable for you, just go ahead and settle into it. And breathe in to your body. Breathe into this moment, into this space. And simply notice how you feel. Do you feel any discomfort? Do you feel relaxed? Is there anything on your mind? And then you can, when you're ready, open your eyes. And if you feel inclined, feel free to share in the chat. Noticing and giving ourselves the opportunity to notice how we're feeling and what we're experiencing builds that relationship with ourselves. The same way we would nurture a relationship that was external, simply by noticing, we offer ourselves the opportunity to support. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Rachel. And yeah. Yeah, and when we check in with our bodies, right? If we're not checking in, then we don't necessarily notice. Did both of you? Because Philip also just commented. Did both of you understand that those things were true before you checked in? Because that is the gift in my mind. Yeah. No, we don't always notice until our bodies get really loud, right? Or our minds get really loud. or emotions get really loud. And then we create another difficulty or discomfort for ourselves because we have an internal yelling that's happening, right? And so when we create the space to notice ourselves, to notice what's happening in our bodies, in our minds, and in our spirit, then we support this relationship so that we can have the kind of communication that feels easy. You know, that friend that you from across the room can nod at and you've just exchanged like sentences. You know that it's time to leave or step outside or one of you needs a hug. And we can be like that with ourselves, which is how I find I really get to the point of being authentic and showing up as myself consistently. I get this freedom from being with myself and offering that support. So we're going to take it a step further and just, right, since this, when we're talking about shoulder and neck tightness, which is common for a lot of people, I'm just going to reach up. You want your hands to be facing outward. And just reach up. And again, just breathe into this. It doesn't have to be a stretch. It's more like an offering. Offering the boost of circulation for healthy shoulders and necks. And letting your body know that you've heard it. And then release and relax. And so what usually happens when we help ourselves feel heard, help our bodies feel heard in this case, and then respond with acknowledgement. And we just took it a step further, like a boost to our circulation. Then our bodies ease a bit, right? That tension eases a bit. Maybe not all the way, but we get more space. And in that space, we have more opportunity to be ourselves. Did both of you or anyone else who's joined experience an increase of space? And no is no okay answer, right? Yeah, you did. Good. But not everyone is going to feel everything every time, right? The further we are away we are from ourselves, the further it might be that we need to build more communication before we can have more release, more relaxation, more space. But I'm glad to hear that both of you felt that. Yeah. It's, again, the more space we create for ourselves, the more space we have to be ourselves because it's less pressure. And we get to choose how to show up, how to act, instead of falling into a reaction. That's what building space does. So our body, when we check in with our body, often gives us this general understanding that something is off. And I'm going to be looking down at some notes I have. So if I'm looking off screen, that's what's happening. But until we really tune in, the more we build that communication, the clearer those messages are. But in the beginning, we just have an idea. Oh, stiff neck, sore shoulders, right? And so our goal is to build that inner communication on every level, because every aspect of you needs to be heard, deserves to be heard. And the more that we nurture each of these aspects, the more full we are. For either of you, does your shoulders or your neck mean anything in particular to you past just that area being sore? For me, I know that when my shoulders feel sore, I'm thinking about so you're all kind of identifying work or a storage area for stress. And that's an interesting thing too, right? I mean, physical injuries can certainly do it. And I think of this as kind of a chicken and the egg conversation. When an area becomes a storage space for stress, I think of that as the vocalization of that area building to get the attention that it needs to be supported, to be noticed, to be addressed. Right? So a storage area for stress is really like because there's a sore area, if the body stores more stress there, then at some point it will get supported. And the goal here, my goal, is to support you with things that help you hear it sooner. So it doesn't have to get so loud. And so that, again, you can create more space. Right. Externally, we know this, like in a meeting or community building, we know that people will start to yell if they don't feel heard. Yeah, I love that. Philip. Philip just shared that when he's massaged, it feels like he's answering his body's emails. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And we just, this is going to be a practice to me too. Responding to the chat and keeping my train of thought is going to be its own ongoing practice for me. I'm confident that I'll get better because I have gained skills before. But yeah. So we know that when we don't listen to a person that we're in communication with, they might start to yell. Or if we don't feel heard, if we might start to yell. And so internally, it's the same thing. And this is simply showing up as your authentic self is simply getting into that practice, being ready to support yourself with that. So let's move on to the mind, right? And how we think. We often see, so I think about, right, in the body, I know that I have more to listen to, more that can support me in increasing my internal space and showing up more authentically if I feel discomfort. In the mind, I'm looking for the mental equivalent of that, which is repetitive thoughts, or blame to something external, or shame of myself, right? And simply noticing any of those things that happen to make myself feel heard and and give myself the opportunity for nurture. So let's again just tune back in. And invite your mind to wander a bit as you breathe. And to offer you anything that it wants you to know. Whatever comes up, simply acknowledge the thought. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes back up and tune back in to the room here. So, if any of you had thoughts that had things come up, you're welcome to share. And every thought, if it's a repetitive thought, if it's blame of something outside of us, if it's shaming ourselves, right? All of those are, again, pieces where we can give ourselves more nurture. And we can notice, is this thought that's repeating? Is it how I really feel? Is it what I really think? Is it something I feel good about? Is it something I agree with, right? Can be curious about it without judging. And listen to our minds the way that we would listen to a friend, right? We don't always agree with our friends when we're showing up with hugs when they're in a hard time. We're just showing up and we're being present to support them. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And it's noticing concerns or worries that we have, right? It's an opportunity to pour into ourselves. There can be truth in it without the statement being true, right? Or maybe there's a fully true statement that we're saying in a way that we could shift to a more positive perspective. But we can't just jump over that. First, we have to feel that hard feeling, which is like to go back to that when we're talking to a friend comparison. We don't just dive into, well, I mean, sometimes, but typically when we greet a friend, right, and who is going through a hard time, when we're supporting someone, we'll give them like a safe space. Maybe that's hugs, maybe that's a listening ear, and we're present with them. And then eventually we start to interact depending on the friendship, on the relationship. Maybe that's and what they need, what they want from us. And so this is the opportunity for you to do that for yourself. To give yourself the space to notice and to ask, what part of you is connected to that? What memory comes up in connection to that? Yeah. 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 So here's an exercise that we can do to support that. So let's close our eyes again and go back into our breath and back into whatever thought came up. And imagine the you or part of you that feels like that. if an image comes to mind or a memory comes to mind or a feeling, just approach that and surround it with love. Acknowledging the thought and letting yourself know that you unconditionally love and support yourself and that you're noticing. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the space. And that's an exercise, right? Again, just like the body exercises, these two mind exercises, noticing and then supporting ourselves, all these are quick and just ways to provide ourselves with more space. Yeah, good. Thanks for that positive feedback. And I love it, is the truth. I love the freedom that it gives me, the way that it makes me feel like I'm opening up myself so that I have more room to be myself. Right? If I notice a judgment, then to me it is a cue for me to give myself some more nurture. And then spirit. So our spirit, I think of as our subtle body, right? It's the experience of connection beyond ourselves. And everyone, regardless of your belief system, has experienced this, right? You've experienced sunsets that struck you, that filled your heart, or that took your breath away, or being in a forest where beauty, like the archetype of beauty, surrounded you and overwhelmed you, or hearing a sound like a bird song. I mean, obviously, I'm connected to nature, so that's where my examples are coming from. But or when we're in a crowded room, right? Without looking, we often will know if somebody is super happy or super upset without hearing or necessarily interacting with that in any way. The room will often look in that direction when you get a really powerful emotion, right? And all of that is this connection from us to outside of ourselves and back in again. And the question here, right, is are you creating space for that connection? Or are you just allowing it when it happens? For me, this even goes into, if you've been watching my videos for a while or interacting with me in life for a while, then you know that this is my relationship with death too. Because we've all had experiences where we felt the presence of someone who has transitioned out of their body, or we've been reminded of them in a strong, powerful, meaningful way. And all of that interaction with spirit, whether it's a sunset, a forest, a person, a loved one, we often wait for it, right? How often do you choose it? Do you sit with a blade of grass? Or choose to connect with a bird song? Or invite a loved one who has passed on to connect with you? The more that we connect outside of ourselves, again, the more space we have, because the more clarity we have about what is ours, what are you carrying, and what's around you. So we're going to do one more exercise here. And just close your eyes and breathe into this space. We've been connecting in this space together. Notice what the experience of that is in you. Notice any awareness that you have of the room around you without looking, just any awareness you have. Notice any awareness you have of people who or places that are beyond your current room. And then again, you can put it down, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back in this space. So that too is another way of creating our own space, showing up. Because the more space we have in all of these areas, the more connection we have with ourselves, the more space we have with ourselves. And the more we're able to show up as ourselves consistently with unconditional self-love, without judgment. Just accepting. And a couple of things that I love, thoughts that I have that I love to share about this process is that your inner wisdom always knows best. You know your experience best, what's happening in your body, your mind, your spirit, what's going on in your holistic system. You are the person who understands that best. So whether it's me or another teacher or just a loved one or any part of universe, any part of creation, you know you best. So you always want to listen to that inner wisdom. And maybe it's my mom used to call it a little voice inside, right? Or maybe it's a feeling. But as you develop that relationship and tune into your inner wisdom and express more of yourself in the way that brings you joy, the more clear that becomes. Because here's another idea that I love to say, like anything else, it's a practice. Everything that we do is a practice. There are a lot of things that we've been practicing for a long time that are not really things that we chose to practice. They're just habits that we picked up. And so when we choose new practices that bring us joy, that feel authentic to us, that support us in being ourselves, then we have the opportunity to develop them, to support ourselves. And with all of this, the final thought that I want to share with you tonight is gentle is sustainable, right? We want to take all of our growth gently. I use the analogy of the gym a lot because I feel like everyone can relate to this idea of if you've never lifted weights before, you're not going to go to the gym and try to lift 300 pounds because you're going to hurt yourself. right? But you can build to whatever your maximum is. You can build slowly. You can build in a way that will not cause injury. This conversation with your body, with your mind, with your spirit, with yourself, building that bridge to your inner wisdom and supporting yourself with unconditional self-love is just that way. The more gentle we are with ourselves, the more we will continue going. The less likely we are to be held up by overwhelm or an injury or something that gets in our way. So I appreciate all of you being here with me tonight, or all of you who are watching it later. And I'm going to close for us with just a self-love affirmation. So go ahead and give yourself a hug. Close your eyes if that feels more comfortable. Take a deep breath. And repeat. I'm going to say this for myself, and I invite you to repeat it for yourself. So replace my name with yours. I love you so much, Vita. I support you, and I'm so grateful to be on this journey. Thank you all for being here, and I'll hang out for a few minutes because this was. So if anybody has any questions or comments they'd like to share, I'd love to see them. If you're watching this later, please feel free to leave comments, and I'll respond to them as I see them. I'm so glad, Rachel. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah, thank you for being here, Pruitt. Good. You're welcome, Philip. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support. And I'll be back on in 2 weeks with Reverend Michelle Wadley, who is a teacher who has a forgiveness book and a shadow work book out, and is constantly teaching beautiful things about those subjects. And I know that our conversation is going to be a great one too. Well, I guess I will sign off with the way that I sign off my videos. I love me. I love you. I love us. I love this world that we can choose to create together, to be the world that we all desire to live in. I'll see you soon.